Do you ever find 12 by 12 patterned paper challenging to work with as a card maker? Hi, I'm Jess from JessCrafts.com, and I'm here to help you make the most of your crafty supplies in time. So let's get making. Today I want to take a piece of 12 by 12 patterned paper that I find kind of challenging to work with as a card maker. This bunny pattern paper, which is from the Spring Bunnies collection from Paper Rose, I purchased it, I believe, last year in 2024, so it's no longer available. They have other cute collections, and I think you can apply this to anything with these like larger scale images. They could be animals, all kinds of like vehicles. I was thinking, I've seen, whatever like printed on your paper. I think an extra challenge of this is also that it's a very white patterned paper overall, but I think we're gonna have some good ways to address this. My goal is to use this piece of patterned paper without making scraps. So I have my 12 by 12 paper busting template. I have designed 40 different templates, or basically ways to cut a piece of 12 by 12 pattern paper and turn it into A2 size cards without making scraps. Today I'm going to take one piece of 12 by 12 paper and turn it into 4 A2 size cards. Sometimes it might be 6. I think 6 is the most common size. Sometimes it's as many as 9 cards. There's different amounts of cards, but it always makes, it's just, you can get a set of them that make A2 size cards. Most of these are available for free at jesscrafts.com. There will be a link to this particular one that I'm using today in the video description. So I am going to be using portions of the front of this pattern paper, but I'm also going to be taking advantage of the fact that it is a double-sided pattern paper and using the back as well. I'm going to start by cutting off the branding strip. It's a little easier to do on the more solid side of the patterned paper. Then the way that I'm going to take advantage of these adorable bunnies is I'm going to make them my focal point image here. So this is a great place for a sentiment, and then we're going to use a chunk of paper as the background as well. So this 4 by 3 inch piece here, I want to pick which side of the pattern paper will give me the best chunks of 4 by 3. Like they will feature the most of each bunny. You won't be cutting off too much of it. If I look on this side, this right side here, which is kind of what it shows in the sketch, but you can always transfer it to the other side, and I try to cut off like 3 inches, I'll have a whole bunny, but a lot of like extra white space. And then the next time I go to cut it off, I might be cutting his little nose off. Like this side looks like, unfortunately, where the 3 inches are gonna fall, it's just gonna be a little bit awkward. So I'm gonna go to the other side. And so I encourage you to do the same thing with your paper, because a lot of times these papers aren't like perfectly symmetrical. And, maybe yours is and it doesn't wind up being a good fit, but this is one of the sketches I would suggest trying for a larger scale patterned paper. So I'm gonna cut off 4 inches. Then I'm going to cut them down to 3 inches each. I'm going to measure to 9, and then 6, and then 3, and each time that is going to give me a 3 inch piece. And as you can see, this has an incomplete bunny and a good portion of a bunny. The little bunny butt there is a bit awkward, but this one is like, doesn't have a complete bunny, but he also doesn't look too awkwardly cut off because there's most of him. And it's enough that like you kind of have like a bunny your eye is drawn to. This one worked out really well because there's 2 basically complete bunnies. There's a teeny tiny bit of an ear cut off there. And then here another complete bunny. So I think that that worked out fairly well as giving me a good focal point for each of my cards. Another thing that I would consider doing with a pattern paper like this, especially if you're okay with scraps, because this won't use up every single inch of it the way that my template will today, but you could cut around these in like a fussy cut kind of way and use each one of these as its own focal point embellishment on a card. Now, when you only have a partial bunny here, that's not gonna probably be what you want for an embellishment. You could cut out the eggs and use them similarly. I realize it gets pretty fussy, but if you think about what the cost of a set of die cuts is, like pre-made die cut pieces, you can usually, I think they're like, I want to say $5 or more a pack at this point. Being able to fussy cut the amount of bunnies that you would be able to get out of this pattern paper would be pretty cost effective. It looks like you would get 4 across, because I'm counting the fact that I cut this off. So like 4 across, and then you would get like 4 rows of them. So it's about 16. I mean, again, some of them are a little imperfect, they're a little cut off or whatever, but something to consider is that actually that might be a pretty good deal if you don't mind fussy cutting. Okay, so for the rest of the pattern paper, we're gonna cut it to 4 by 12 inches again. Then we're going to cut it to, well, actually, I want to cut the 3/4 inch pieces off of this largest piece. So I'm going to bring it to 11 1/4, and then again to 10 1/2. So I'm measuring 3/4 inch down. Please follow all manufacturer's safety instructions when working with tools. And then we're going to come to 5 1/4. And now you can see we have all the building blocks we need for a card. Focal point bunny, yellow background paper, and then for the sentiment, I could use the yellow side again, and that would be an easy way to stamp, or an easy place to stamp because it would come out really well. You could try using the other side if you like what, little strip of paper you cut. Here, it's like an awkward bunny face. So I think I'll probably use the yellow today, again, because it's easy to stamp on. So my next step is going to be to cut mats for my cards. I'm going to make 4 cards, so I'll need 4 sets of mats. The mats are always found on the sketch side of the overall template. And so, for instance, it calls for a mat for the 4 1/4 by 5 1/4 inch piece. It's just 1/4 inch bigger. So 4 becomes 4 1/4, and then 5 1/4 becomes 5 1/2. However, I'm not going to cut mats for that piece because I'm just going to mount it on colored cardstock. You could choose the same color as you use for your mats. I'm going to use this craft cardstock because I had some extra card bases in craft that I wanted to use up. And I am going to use purple for the rest of my mats. Again, of course, you just make your own decisions about that kind of thing, but that's where you find those measurements. And in this case, because all of the mats have a 4 1/4 inch side, I wanted to briefly remind you of how you can do that with efficiency if you're using 8 1/2 by 11 cardstock. So I need a 3 1/4 by 4 1/4 inch mat. So I'm going to bring my piece to 3 1/4 by 8 1/2. Remember to follow all manufacturer safety instructions when working with tools like trimmers and such. And then we're going to take that 8 1/2 inch side and cut it in half to 4 1/4. So now I have 2 3 1/4 by 4 1/4 pieces, and we've cut it with like no scraps from that. That doesn't mean there'll be no scraps from the paper, but we're going to need 4 3 1/4 inch mats and 4 1 1/4 inch by 4 1/4 inch mats. And I think I can get that all out of, I can get all of that out of a single piece of 8 1/2 by 11 cardstock. So it's pretty efficient on cardstock. And then if you were wanting your card bases to match, you can cut 2 A2 size card bases exactly out of one piece of 8 1/2 by 11 paper. I'm ready to take advantage of this light yellow paper to stamp my sentiment. I pulled in the Happy Easter sentiment from Extraordinary Easter by Fawn, and I like that it's a little bit thicker because it's going to help to show off the color, because I'm going to pull that purple color back in. I understand like you can make black work for most cards, but I do actually enjoy having a set of the Fawn ink cubes. I don't have a lot of inks because I personally just don't use a bunch, but I do have I decided one that I would just get just this collection. I would just get the mini cubes. I don't want to have a whole bunch of ink colors as someone who doesn't use a bunch of ink. So I have like a set of distress inks because they have like certain properties, and then one set of dye inks. So I keep it simple. But a couple of tips. The Fawn inks, when I purchased them anyway, the bottoms don't have the color name on them. And so I did take a label maker and add the color name to the bottom just in case I'm using them, like using multiple colors, and then it's not obvious which one, especially like if I was using 2 different purples. So I found that to be a helpful thing to have. And I also made ink swatches using Jennifer McGuire's, like you could, on her site, you can get these, and I'll try to link it in the video description. You used to be able to. And then I used the little like heart ink swatch from Fawn to make these. And the reason that I think that it's worth doing is because then I can go and bring my cardstock and kind of find out which color when it dries back is going to be closest. Things will affect it, like I'm stamping on yellow instead of white, so like it might look slightly different, that kind of thing, but it gives me a good estimate. And I do find that I use these, especially when I cut it small enough. She recommends these, Jennifer McGuire. I want to make sure I'm giving very full credit to the person who came up with this idea. So she recommends these little like coin pockets or such. And so when I cut them down though, I found that then having a little flip book made it easier, and I access them more often than like say putting it in a binder when they're full-size sheets. So just a couple little tips around that kind of stamping, inking, etc. And then I am able to use a stamp positioning tool, in this case a MISTI, so that I get a good impression. This first time I'm not getting a very good impression because this is a new stamp and I haven't done anything to condition it. I also had a little bit of like an ink fuzz. I don't know what to call it, but sometimes like the edges of an ink pad will break off, and that got on my stamp. So it's messed up my A a little bit, which is kind of a bummer because I don't have extra paper. That is the challenge of these no scrap templates sometimes, is if you stamp something wrong, it's kind of it, you know? So that is why I do like to use the stamp positioner, but even that is not perfect. Now, this is very readable. The mistake in the A is, you know, it's clear, but it's not like, it doesn't make it unreadable. You can see it there. So unfortunately that happened, but I'm just gonna keep using it anyway. Sorry for the camera unfocusing there, but I wanted to highlight that detail. All right, and then we are just ready to assemble the card. Instead of adding an embellishment, we are going to let the very pretty patterned paper do the work of the embellishing for us, because there are those adorable bunnies. And like I said, I could see even cutting these out and putting them on a card intentionally as an embellishment. So I think it works to let the pattern paper be the embellishment. Because my cardstock mats are exactly the same size in theory as my card base, it's going right up to the edge. Every once in a while, like there'll be that tiny bit of difference. Can you see that there on the edge, like that little bit of purple sticking out? I would go in with my trimmer or scissor and just kind of keep that all even. I'm just like, imperfections are going to happen. I'm partly just taking the moment to highlight the little imperfections in this because I think it's important to remember that, because I can get discouraged sometimes too, being like, why is it like I'm always having to do these little tiny adjustments here and there, and nobody's perfect, and that's okay. So this is the card today, and I'm going to make multiples of it, so there'll be 4 in all by just adhering these last few pieces down. If you found this video helpful, here's another video where you can find more ideas for enjoying your crafty time and supplies. Let me know you like this video with a share to your crafty community, subscribe and click the bell so you don't miss the next template or tutorial, and check the video description for product links. You can get the free template at the link below, or if you would rather just get a whole bunch at one time, you can purchase a pack in the Etsy shop. Thanks for watching. Bye.